It was an accident, but he made me do it. I didn't want to kill him. I had to. I had no other choice. I wouldn't even keep you as a slave in my empire!
Go! Destroy everything in your path! Make them see Invincible! Make them fear Invincible! Make them hate!
You were given orders, and yet I find this planet unprepared for the arrival of our Viltrum Empire. Viltrumite heart. Show me your power. Show me your rage.
This has been an immense joy. I don't care how strong you are. I don't care how fast you are. I can see the future. You don't live to see tomorrow.
Hello superhero fans and fellow Mudbeards, and today I want to bring you another Invincible video. Primarily because Season 3 had just wrapped up, and I feel it brings to light a question that a lot of people ask themselves who are a fan of the genre. That question being, should heroes kill? I feel to start answering this question, we should go back to the original purpose of superheroes in the first place. See, when superheroes were first brought to light, they were brought to light with the idea of a younger demographic in mind. So a lot of the stories and narratives were geared towards a younger audience. But as the genre began to expand in popularity, more and more authors began to involve themselves within this world. See, with so many heroes filling up so many different parts of whatever superhero world they're representing, you had to differentiate the stories amongst said superheroes. And while a lot of superheroes have very similar origin stories, the ones that stand out usually has a significant narrative that builds them to the character that they are today. And with more talented writers creating more interesting superheroes, eventually we got stories incorporated that were more personal. And it was only inevitable that eventually a personal story would be darker than maybe someone who wrote a hero before them. Now sometimes these authors would provide these perspectives but still stay within the confines of the younger demographic they're trying to aim for. However, as time has gone on and the genre's become oversaturated, we've been allowed to bend the rules a little bit and tackle more darker aspects and kind of turn the genre on its head. This led to what we have nowadays in many superhero stories that tackle very dark and very real aspects. A somewhat okay example would be how the Marvel movies have gotten a little darker over time. A better live action example would be The Boys, which really tackles into the darker aspects of human nature. And while The Boys takes the live action superhero medium and turns it on its head, another show takes the animated world of superhero stories and turns that on its head. And that show is obviously See, while The Boys perfectly presents itself as a world like the MCU that is a little bit darker, the Invincible series presents itself as if it's part of the DC animated universe or alteration of such, but tackles the narrative in a very real and grounded way, incorporating a lot of darker aspects like abuse, like collateral damage, like the concept of murder in the first place. How much weight does a life hold in these universes? One of the oldest examples I could find of a hero actually tackling these concepts was the story of Wolverine versus Sabretooth. It's said that in issue 90 he had actually pierced Sabretooth in the head with his claws. The only problem is he had a healing factor, and a lot of these villains would come back relatively quickly. And when you have a hero that literally has knives for hands, you have no choice but to give him an enemy that he can actually stab. But like I said, to stay within those confines, Sabretooth always came back. And I know resurrections are common amongst most superhero comics, but that's a topic for a whole different video. Now, I presented this question to my relatively newer Discord to see if anybody had any interesting inputs. One of the members, going by the name Tragedy Strikes His, had said, "I believe that Invincible specifically had an advantage to explore murder in their universe, primarily due to being a product of an independent publisher. Mark lives in a world that is fantastical, but also very grounded, where the consequences feel slightly more grounded." When Cecil agreed that Mark probably should have killed Levy, it's a reminder that most people in this world would not have questioned Mark's decision. Think back to Season 1, Episode 1. Mid-Mortal was fighting that scientist guy and just throws him into space for the convenience of getting rid of the problem. Was that common thought for the best superhero team on the planet? Does the world governments and president agree with this logic? Mark asking himself if this is really the kind of world where he can afford to stick to his personal morality is really intriguing, and I believe that he really hit the hammer on the nail there. See, the idea of murder, just like in our world, is a really tough subject to tackle, and while you could kind of take a side and treat it as if it's more of a black and white situation, we kind of have to understand the differences. In our world, there's a lot of debate to be had, but put yourself in the perspective where 99% of the population have these powers that relatively could destroy most people within a close vicinity. More people die in these type of universes to collateral damage rather than intentional. And I like how this show presents us with multiple sides of the spectrum. See, there are people within this universe that genuinely do believe life matters in every sense of the word, and do not want anybody to die. Juxtapose this with the other side of the spectrum, the Viltrumites and or some of the worst villains Invincible has faced, who see life as nothing more than how we would see an ant. When you have enemies that are this tough and are willing to use the people you care about to manipulate you, can you really afford to try to save every single life? Sure, it'd be easy to say that as a hero, you should fight and try to save every single person that you can. And while that is a noble goal to try to hold on to, you also have to be realistic in some cases. See, human beings at the end of the day will always protect their own over everything else. And not one being outside of maybe God could look at every single individual living person on the planet and really feel about them equally. Let's take a look at some of the heroes that try to find balance in between the black and white. Like Tragedy on my Discord server said, Mid-Mortal had no hesitation in throwing that villain out into space, definitely killing him and then ridding the problem immediately. Does the fact that he saves lives more than he maybe takes justify the idea of neglecting another human life so easily? Now you have another character that lives within this morally grayscale, and that's Mark, the best representation of heroes and if they should kill. See, Mark, even admitting to us that he, at the end of the day, will protect the ones he loves over everything else, still will find time to protect as many lives as he can. And sure, other heroes do this as well, but the only difference is, from what we've seen, Mark is the only person who will actually take the enemies he fights and truly try to give them a chance at rehabilitation in some way, shape, or form before just straight up executing them. Now, to be fair, it's taken until Season 3 for him to get to this point, but I do feel this is a perfect point to actually tackle this issue. Should heroes kill? Let's break down what happened when Mark thought he had killed Angstrom Levy. Angstrom Levy, who on his own accord had messed his own brain up and started attacking Mark. When Mark had convinced himself he killed Angstrom Levy, he beat himself up for a long time, actively affecting how he did at his job. But little did he know, he didn't actually finish the job, and Angstrom Levy was gearing up to bring some chaos back into Mark's life. Mark is someone that doesn't deserve 99% of the things that happens to him, and he still takes the blame. Now throw in the fact that a guy you convinced yourself you're murdered and you were beating yourself up over has brought clones of yourself to destroy everything around you, attempting to tarnish your name and reputation, while simultaneously killing millions. Dealing with the mental tug of war during that entire catastrophe alone would have set any of the heroes in any other comic down a mental spiral. We can even see how Mark is struggling with this aspect before yet another gut punch arrives to really test his morality, that being Conquest. With about a week to breathe, he goes from cleaning up the devastation of a bunch of clones of himself and a guy he thought he murdered and still has yet to murder, to a Viltrumite who looks more threatening than every single Viltrumite he's ever seen before. And we see throughout this fight that while Conquest is toying with him, Mark tends to treat this as if it's a normal superhero fight. That is until Conquest steps it up. We see when he's getting pushed into a corner, like most others that are getting beat down in their first fight, he tries to stop the fight. He holds his hand up thinking that Conquest will treat this as if it's the same superhero battle that happens on this planet all the time. And Conquest immediately corrects that misconception. Now we see when it comes to Viltrumites, that's the only time Mark can fight and not really hold back. However, when it's on another planet and most of the people are already destroyed, he doesn't have much to worry about. Versus when it's on his home turf and there's people all around, dying all around him, he really has to shift his mental so he can focus on the battle. Remember when he fought his dad? The people dying around him really affected him during the battle. We see during this fight he's a lot more focused, but is that enough? The only times we see him truly stepping into the hero he needs to be is when one of his loved ones is truly in danger, his rage fully taking hold and him going as ham as he can on Conquest. And Conquest is someone who is definitely stronger than Mark, and someone who is okay showing how malicious he truly is. Now take villains out there in the world who know they're less strong than Mark and know they need to survive somehow. Villains who are okay with maybe lying, pretending they're getting better, pretending they aren't gonna murder again. That concept in and of itself really tests your morality. And while some superheroes seem to have jaded themselves to the point where they just rid a problem that seems like a threat, Mark has found a balance between treating enemies with respect until they become a certain amount of threat. Then he treats them as something that needs to be taken down. Remember, Mark is the strongest superhero on this planet, and the best chance Earth has against defending against the Viltrumites. Sure, if everyone was on an equal playing field, he could argue and really stick to whatever morality he wanted to. But being Earth's best chance for survival, doesn't he have a responsibility to fight and do whatever it takes to win? Unfortunately for him, he may not have the luxury of putting himself on the same playing field as everyone else on the planet. His responsibility is as a barrier to all threats. If you want my opinion on the question, should superheroes kill? I think Mark is the perfect answer to that question. And you might be telling yourself, well, that's not really a clear answer. And that's the point. There is no clear answer. It's not a black or white situation. Sometimes the answer lies within the gray. And while some maybe convince themselves they live in the gray with how casually they kill people, mid-mortal, Mark really does represent a hero who is living within the perfect ideal moral alignment. Or at least that's in my opinion. But I want to know yours. Do you think it's okay for heroes to kill? Should Mark hold on to these morals no matter who the enemy is that he's facing? Or should Mark be more quick to dispatch of anybody that even poses a slight threat to the people he loves? Remember, his mom is just human and can be taken down by a simple bullet. This question has a lot of layers, and a lot of it does tie to the circumstance that he's dealing with. But again, let me know what you think down below. Either way, Invincible Season 3 was absolutely incredible. I don't know if I'll be doing a review necessarily, but if you want my opinion, I absolutely loved it. Genuinely appreciated the Conquest fight more than the Omni-Man fight, narratively for different reasons, but just animation-wise, I thought it was amazing. That being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this season as well. Look forward to Season 4. Please give them patience so they can kill it with the animation again, maybe throughout the entire season. But otherwise, have a good rest of your guys' day. And remember, if you're feeling lonely, you don't need a therapist, just tell it to your murder victims.
Yesterday.